We're learning more about the FBI raid on John Bolton's home and office. What were investigators really looking for and what it means for the former national security advisor. But first, what happens in D.C. doesn't stay in D.C. President Trump expanding his crackdown on crime and illegal immigration beyond the nation's capital. In fact, the administration is now planning to deploy 1,700 National Guard troops to 19 states over the next few weeks, and that should be very interesting. And with that, we welcome you to another hour of Fox News Live. I'm Kevin Corke here in Washington. With more, we want to head over to the White House, the North Lawn to be specific. That's where we find my buddy Lucas Tomlinson, who has more on what has been a very busy week for the president. Hey, LT.
It sure has. Good morning, Kevin. And the Pentagon says over 2,000 National Guard soldiers are patrolling the streets of the nation's capital right now. And President Trump says they could be deployed to other big cities as well.
We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
Now, last year, Kevin, the murder rate in D.C. was on par with Chicago and nearly 4 times higher than Los Angeles and nearly 6 times higher than New York. Last hour, Congressman Pat Fallon told you D.C. needs to be cleaned up.
Even with D.C. hooking the books on their crime statistics, you're 3.5 times more likely to be killed in D.C. than you were in 2012 when a serious crime is committed. And from 2018 to 2023, carjackings are up 550%. So things are out of control. And thank goodness President Trump has taken these, again, bold actions.
As you mentioned off the top, 1,700 National Guard members will also be deployed in 19 states. The White House says they will help DHS with clerical support for processing illegal aliens at ICE facilities. Now, yesterday, FBI agents raided the home of Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton. After returning to his office, Trump pulled his security clearance and protective detail. And those agents were also seen in his Washington office carrying boxes of documents, likely searching for classified information. Yesterday, the president admitted he's not a fan of Bolton, who wrote a book critical of the president.
I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I thought he was a sleazebag, actually. And he suffers major Trump derangement syndrome.
Now, at the same time as the raid, Trump's FBI director, Kash Patel, posted on X, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on mission." Kevin?
Hey, Lucas, really quickly, I just want to get your take on something. I think the president may have made mention of this. He said, listen, I understand that this raid happened. I learned about it sort of belatedly. Is there any explanation for that from what you've been able to glean at the White House, speaking of the Bolton raid?
That's right, Kevin. The president said he had no knowledge of the raid. It's interesting that on August 13th, the day after Bolton was very critical of the president in a piece in The Atlantic, the president took to Truth Social and criticized and name-checked Bolton, saying, why were people critical? Of course, that was ahead of the president's meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska for that summit. So the president, just days ago, was very critical of Bolton. So some people are looking at that one, Kevin.
Yeah, he also added that, listen, as the chief law enforcement officer of the country, I guess I could be fully briefed on this, but he didn't sound to me like he was all that interested in getting in the weeds on it. Was that your take as well?
That's what the president says, Kevin. We take people at their word.
Well, aren't you nice? Me, I'm like, really? Really, Mr. President? Is that the line? Yeah, but like you said, he's
There's no doubt, Kevin, there's no love lost between John Bolton and the president. There's no question. Certainly with that book being published, very critical of the president, and comes out in paperback soon. It was just a few days ago, earlier this month, actually, that John Bolton said that he thought this was a retribution president. Of course, the president, when he was running for re-election, said retribution was not going to be a part of his second term.
Yeah, he did say that. And listen, I know we're having a bit of levity here, but the truth is, if there are serious documents that are in his possession, he could face very serious penalties. Lucas, thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. And for more on the Bolton raid, President Trump saying again he had no prior knowledge of it, as many people continue to wonder exactly what classified documents might have been in his possession and what they may have been looking for. So what happens from here? We want to discuss this with former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Dupree. You are the smartest guy I know on topics like this, so I'm thrilled to have you with us this morning. I have to say it this way, Todd. Honestly, I just feel like the former advisor could be in real big trouble here. Am I overstating it?
You're not overstating it. And look, the one thing everyone involved in this can agree on is there is no love lost between President Trump and John Bolton. And yesterday's raid, I think, significantly ups the ante here. To your point, there is a lot at stake. If one is convicted of various felonies, crimes concerning mishandling of classified information, that allows for very serious criminal penalties, including possible incarceration. So this isn't a joke. This is very serious. I think what the agents in all likelihood were looking for were not just documents that might currently be in Bolton's possession, but documents that he might have emailed, possibly to a private server or kind of outside the classification processes of the government when he was a government employee. So I strongly suspect the FBI is looking not just for paper documents and boxes, but also for electronic records. For example, records that might be on a laptop computer or an iPad in Bolton's home.
Is it a bridge too far to suggest, Todd, that this is a similar circumstance, perhaps, again, that could befall James Comey? Here's somebody who has made no bones about the fact that he sent material to someone who could then leak it to the Times. Am I sort of piecing it all together in that respect?
Well, anytime you're in the government, you obviously have to be exceedingly careful about how you use classified information, about people you share it with, about email addresses that you might send it to, because there is the very strong possibility that if you are later found to have mishandled the classified information or sent it to someone who has no business seeing it, you could be subject to investigation and possible prosecution. So I think there is that danger, not just for John Bolton, but also for Jim Comey and for others, particularly those who served in the prior Trump administration and who have since had a falling out, to say the least, with the president and the current administration.
Yeah, keep an eye on that. The former Deputy Attorney General Tom Dupree with us. Let me switch gears for just a second, Tom. Just in last, not very many hours ago, the president announced they are mobilizing the National Guard in 19 states to again support his crime and illegal immigration crackdown, expanding beyond the borders of Washington, D.C. This is all happening as the DOJ is investigating whether officials here in the nation's capital manipulated stats. So a two-part question real quick. What do you make of the Guard going across many states across the country? And second, you and I both know crime stat manipulation is nothing new, but what's happening here in D.C. could be worse, I think, than some anticipate. What do you think?
Sure. I think what we are seeing now, the possible expansion of this National Guard mobilization, is hardly surprising. I think the administration has been very clear that what they are doing in D.C. right now is in some sense a test run. They want to see whether or not mobilizing the National Guard, deploying federal resources, surging them into the district in a way to reduce violent crime, whether it works or not. And if it proves successful in D.C., I think it is likely going to serve as a model for undertaking similar programs in different cities across the United States. Look, D.C. is not alone. There are many large cities in America that are struggling with this problem of violent crime. And the administration is taking an aggressive effort. They're using unusual tactics to do this. No president has tried this before. But if it proves successful in Washington, D.C., I think they are definitely planning to take this show on the road and expand it throughout the country.
And I would think that cities would welcome this, but apparently that's not the case, at least in some places like maybe Boston and maybe even Chicago. 30 seconds left. That shouldn't stop the administration from acting. You agree?
I agree, and I don't think it will stop the administration from acting. And look, there's always going to be tension anytime you overlay federal law enforcement with state and local officials. But I will say this, in D.C., I have been pleasantly surprised by the extent to which the federal authorities and the local authorities have been working cooperatively. There hasn't been that sort of tension and infighting that you often see when this happens. So we'll see if that holds.
You know, I'm optimistic a little that given what has happened here in Washington will make people sort of soften even their political opposition to this, because the truth is, for those who live in the cities, you know, I like to say it's one thing to say we don't want this, and then you can go back to your Tony neighborhoods out in the burbs somewhere where you can live in peace and tranquility. But for the people who are in it every day, anything that we can do to make things safer for the people who live in places like this and other big cities around the country, I would think is a win for the citizens and not just for the administration. Tom Dupree, thank you, my friend. We appreciate your time this weekend. Have a great one.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.